I know you're in Congress and you think, oh, he can't do what he says, but I can. Now, I've been documenting kidnapping, yes, grand larceny, bribery, yes. I'd like to have my assets and I'd like to have the benefits of being an actual American citizen. Then I documented the fraud of the picture of my sister Susan Bowers. Yes. And I documented the fraud of sending court notices to the wrong address for 5 years. Yes. And then I documented the fraud of having me arrested for a failure to appear when I requested notice from the state of jurisdiction. Now, did Judge Porter decide to have court hearings without any notice from the state of jurisdiction? And then did you put me in the PENCOM, but then you took me out, and then you didn't put me in the WACIC or the NCIC? In fact, am I still missing? And then the fraudulent use of mental health evaluations. Oh. Now, I want you to remove your fraud from my life. And I will sue for impeachment of every oath of office, all attorney oaths and oaths of admission. Yes, every judge and justice. Pooh. And then I'll sue all the mandatory reporters that did not think, yes, that they had the obligation to inform law enforcement of forgery, fraud, and the holding of my sons against their will. Now, this is what's called West Air Charter. Yes, really nice plane. Yes, exceptional reliability, which I know a lot of those that are very well to do. They like to charter planes for themselves. Yes, October of 2018. Why don't you give me all the planes that have been chartered from any private plane company that leases planes or charters planes so that you as oaths can get from point A to point B so that you can do the business of the government. Because I'd like to know every airplane that you own or that you charter, yes, or that you lease. And then I'd like to have the actual licenses of those that can fly airplanes that happen to be attorneys. All right, mandatory reporters. Yes. Doctors, psychiatrists, CPS employees, Homeland Security. Why don't you get me the actual licenses of those that can fly airplanes legally? And then all of those very well to do individuals that call themselves attorneys, where they thought it was much more, oh my gosh, what did you do in that airplane? You know, I had heard there was a problem with where do you actually shit at when your toilet. Oops, somebody's been on your asshole for the last 20 years, haven't they? Exactly, where do you piss? And then that's all that come to find out. Did you take it up 36? I just need to know who you had sex with them for the last 20. Now, ideas unlimited. Oops, this is cray. Look at that. One of those big AI supercomputer companies. When I moved to my grandmother's after I lived on Guam, yes, I called it the Crayola, one of these big manufacturers of supercomputers. And it seemed that General Peter Corelli had talked to Microsoft. How are they? Now, why don't you get me all the charters, the leases, and the actual? I don't want you flying anymore, and I will want ownership of all your private aircraft. Now, give me the Cray Supercomputer Company. Yes, he does. Seeing that Hu Jintao was the president of China at the time he moved to grandmother's house, and somebody decided to sew me into Cray as if. We were going to sew the population into supercomputers and we'd all be virtualized. I'm going to want to know the ownership of Cray and every employee. I had planned on buying it 3 or 4 years ago, and after I get done impeaching most of those in government in the United States, suing them for the tort liability of being impeached and taking every fucking thing they own, I'm gonna want to own one of these supercomputer companies for myself. Good for you. Good for you. Look at that, a cell phone. How is Craig? Craig McCall. He's one of these godfathers of technology. Now, I know the merger of T-Mobile and Sprint. Why don't you get me the actual cell phones again and the providers of all? I know you're being impeached for refusing to enforce the civil rights of American citizens, obstructing my right to sue you and have you impeached. Is that right, Craig? Now, as an individual that was very involved in the wireless communication industry, why don't